Creative Studio, Master Drawing Japan, and let's make a point to draw every day. It has been a while, and I'm sorry I sound terrible right now because I am fighting a cold and I feel awful. So please bear with me. Um, Actually, I want to talk a little bit about squash and stretch, and you might have noticed like some of these sketches I have on here are they kind of like look like pinup sketches, and actually they're a little bit by inspired by um, actually they're directly from J. Scott Campbell, the comic book artist um, who has sort of like a very like animated, almost like a Disney kind of style. Actually, his artwork actually is influenced by animation a lot. As I heard him say in some interviews that he wanted to be an animator once at some point, and he brings a lot of that sensibility into his artwork. Um, and one of the things that really does seem to give things a feeling of life is the concept of squash and stretch. Now, um, I posted something on X recently that seemed to get a little bit of attention from some people, which is about like understanding squash and stretch can help can help us understand volumes and give things more of a sense of like three dimensionality and also a feeling of like weight. And like one of the ways of really understanding that is like the bouncing ball concept. Like you have like a ball like this, and as it's um, as it's going down, being pulled down by gravity, it tends to stretch out, and then as it's pushing away, it's still stretching out, but then it kind of goes back to its regular shape, kind of slows down like that. Oops, slows down, and then kind of like speeds up again a little bit, right? And then maybe actually maybe not that much, but maybe like that. So this kind of concept helps us to understand um, volumes a little bit more in terms of how forces are acting upon them. You also could think of this as almost like okay, in a situation where there's zero gravity, right? There's nothing like pulling, let's say like on a water drop, right? That water drop should essentially be like moving out like in all directions, and then it'll create kind of like this sphere, like this sphere that tends to seem to have like no particular pull in any way, right? Other than maybe forces like maybe wind or something like that pushing against it. But when you have let's say this water drop, and then like one starts to be like it starts to be pulled down by gravity, right? We get this, right? We get this almost this icon kind of thing that we see like when someone you want to show like a teardrop or something like that. The funny thing about it is like even when people like do like the icon of like this teardrop sort of thing, the reason why it looks like that is because basically you have this heavy part here pulled down by gravity, and this is being stretched out. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So my point is, you have to think about things as a volume and like what forces are acting upon them. Is it being pulled down like this? Again, if I have like this water droplet that's not it's not being affected by any particular gravity. If I pushed it in this way, well, basically, we'll get something like this, right? In other words, we'll have something. Actually, we'll probably push out even more as this is pushing in like that. This part is going to stretch out. It's going to stretch out more, right? I'm not doing a really good job of that. Hold on a second. All right, pushing in, and then you're gonna have, yeah, something like that. But you'll notice that um, the overall volume should not change that much. The volume, really, the volume should not change. That's another thing. Okay, so when I talk about volume, I'm talking about like the overall space, like within that object, right? So, in other words, if I push this in, it's not to expand like that. That's crazy. It's gonna expand like within the confines, like how much space can be filled in this area here, right? So, okay, all right, so how do we apply this to like, say, people and things like that? Going back to Chase Scott Campbell, right? So one of the things that kind of like defines some of um, these animation style characters, is they, they have like very, very youthful features. And, um, the younger that people are, the more, basically the more baby fat, we're going to see on them. And, the cheeks are going to be more, um, soft and pliable and things like that. So let's say, we have like a skull here, right? Here's the temples here, here's the cheekbones here, right? Okay. Mouth is roughly about here. Chin is going to be here, like that, roughly. Okay. So, okay, I'm gonna put the eyes in just to make it easy, make it easy for everybody. Okay. Put my nose here. So, let's say, I have some character like this, and you want to show, the sorry, one second. Yeah, we want to show some of the pliability or the malleability, let's say, like in the cheeks, right? So you have to think that, you know muscles are basically like, these kind of like these vessels, that, they are, they're fibrous vessels, but, they also, are made up of like things like, blood and water and things like that, fat. So basically, it's going to hang off and then it's going to come back in like this, right? If you want to think of it in a way that's um, going to have like a sense of like a volume, um, um, like a ball or something like that, right? Sorry, one second. Another thing, also you have to consider, like, when someone's smiling, like things are going to squash and stretch and pull up and stuff like that. So, we should also consider that, when we're drawing faces, or like, like the musculature, like in the cheeks and things like that. Actually, you know what? I can actually, maybe I can make this a little bit more cuter, but really stretching this out even more. There we go. You see that? And chin's here, like that. And then, of course, like, this is like is a volume that we have here. Okay. So it's like little things like that, which helps um, our drawings actually to feel like it has like a little bit more life to it. Again, I'm basing this off of some. I'm not copying it, but I'm basing this off like a J. Scott Campbell kind of caricature. Okay. Generally, as a rule, I tried not to copy, you know, um, copy anything like when I'm trying to study or like understand, um, like why an artist drew something a certain way. Um, Generally, I want to get the um, I want to understand like why that artist drew it in that particular way. So I can let that inform like my judgment. When I set out to draw the figure or the subject we're talking about. Okay, I switched pencils here because the other one was a little bit too soft, and I needed a uh, little bit more tooth or to what I'm doing here. Okay, so it comes in and inserts in like that. Okay, yeah, like this. Okay. Really, I apologize. I'm really not feeling my best right now. As I'm drawing this, I feel quite awful. If I have to be honest about it, but I thought I would draw something since it's been a while. Oops. Go back to my soft pencil. Okay. All right. I think that's the. Let me change that. Hold on a second. Let me make this a little bit more. There we go. Also, this squash and stretch, any sort of volume, whether, we're talking about like skin or hair for that matter, because this is a volume, right? This is also a volume with the way, this is falling down. not. Breaths or volume also. Okay, I think I spent a little bit too much time on this figure, but that's the basic idea. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Oh, I will stop here for a moment and oops, come back again a little bit later. Sorry, trying to get a pencil that I can. Okay. Okay. Okay, guys. All right. That was interesting. Okay. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.